Yo guys, how's everyone doing? This is your guy AssassinDave. Today we're gonna compare Excoundrel's tier list, a professional caster for League of Legends PC, as well as Wild Rift, and we're gonna compare it with Pro Guy's Wild Rift tier list as well. We're gonna see which guy's more accurate, what's the discrepancy, and why we have such differences. So without further ado, let's jump into the video.
Just for the thrill of it, nothing counterfeit with you. Just the thrill of it.
Alright, let's first start with Baron Lane tier list comparison. On the left side of the screen, we do have Excoundrel's video. On the right side of the screen, we have Pro Guy Wild Rift video. And you can see right off the bat, there are some huge differences. We have Malphite actually being listed as S+, you know, an S+ champ for Excoundrel. And on the right side, for Pro Guide, the most OP, the highest rank, which is kind of like S+, is Akali. Akali definitely is a really strong champ. I talk about it over and over again, but Akali is a player dependent. This champion requires champion proficiency. If you are not good with Akali, you're gonna do no damage, 0 damage, because Akali damage comes from passive. All your skills in between is trying to proc that passive, and the more passive you can get in, the more damage you will do, the more burst damage you will do. So there are actually a lot of champions that actually win against Akali. We talk about Malphite being listed as S+. I mean, there's reason for that because Malphite actually beat a lot of laners. He has a really easy laning phase. I understand why Excoundrel would list Malphite as S+, because this champion does a lot of damage. He can build tank, can build a full AP depending on the lineup, and he has a huge impact in team fights. Huge impact, right? As long as he saved the ultimate for the first dragon, definitely game changing. I almost would agree, but also it depends on the region. In EU server where players are extremely focused on getting the first dragon, I do think Malphite for S+ makes sense. But in all the other regions, in Asian regions, you can actually watch all the challenger plays. At 4 minutes, not everybody is gonna be at the dragon pit. In fact, when the team that Baron laner has some Fiora main, have some Camille main, you actually rarely see those players move to dragon side. They will continue to split push, try to take down the first tower. In fact, the first tower, the amount of gold and experience it provides your team, is a lot more beneficial than the first dragon most of the time. Now, if the first dragon is Inferno Dragon, you do want to contest it to a certain extent. But if it's not, I do think the first tower does provide a lot more benefit. And even if it is Inferno Dragon, remember guys, dragon do not give you any experience, do not give you any gold. All it gives you is a buff. And this buff obviously is really important skill to the late game, but it doesn't give you any upfront benefits. Even if you get Infernal Dragon, 8% extra damage, not gonna do much early game. You know, early to mid game without items, what is an Infernal Dragon, the extra 8% damage gonna do to you if you really think about it? But if you lose the first tower, that's a lot of gold. In fact, the Baron laner who took the first tower, usually it's gonna be like 1,000 gold ahead of their opponent. You know, if you're behind by 1,000 gold, let's say you got ganked by the jungler and you lost a lane kind of, and then their laner moved to dragon, but you just kept on pushing and took the tower, you will be back in the game. In fact, after you take the first dragon, first tower, and you're playing a champion like Fiora, like Camille, who's really disgusting in split pushing, and then one-on-ones, you will be dominating that lane starting from that point on. So it's just different strategies in different regions. In EU server, I do agree with Malphite being S+, because how powerful the champion is in teamfights and in laning phase. But it's not always the best champ, because Malphite doesn't win against any of the Baron laners, especially strong solo push Baron laners late game. From Pro Guy's tutorial, an S tier that they have Darius, they have Fiora, Gragas, Cannon, and Malphite. A lot of similarities over there. I do think Cannon should be put as A tier. Cannon, if you're really good at trading, still can be really disgusting in lane because he is ranged and he can poke with his passive and obviously his shuriken. I think Camille should be moved up. I think Camille is a player-dependent champion. And actually, if you look at Excoundrel's list, they have it right here. The red equal to scary one trick. If somebody's really good with Camille, Camille can be the most dominating laner in the game. Camille's early game laning phase is so good. Like she auto-attacks, she gets a shield, she has 2 damage through her kit. And then it's just her mobility is insane, like we talked about. So I always believe Camille should be moved up to S tier. So for Baron laner, I do think Excoundrel's tier list is much more accurate than the Pro Guide tier list. All right, guys, let's move on to the jungle tier list comparison. For Excoundrel's tier list, he has Lee Sin as S+, and Shyvana fairly high up there, close to S+. Very interesting list. Personally, I disagree with Shyvana being the high tier. Again, I think Shyvana, even in competitive scene, Shyvana is not that strong of a champ. In Asia server, Shyvana is not that strong of a champ. Shyvana is good in EU because nobody invade. In EU server, people like to have a peaceful early game farm. There are very few good Lee Sin players. And the good Lee Sin players, especially the Chinese Lee Sin players who are in EU, they invade. But there are very few of them, which resulting in a very peaceful farming early game phase. So Shyvana becomes really strong, right? Especially right now, Shyvana with the mastermind and all that kind of stuff. She can just steal the dragon. Dragon comes out 4 minutes. If you get a little bit of help, Shyvana jumps in, just poof, poof, 10 seconds, the dragon's gone. Right? You can do it without enemy team even noticing. By the time their jungle came or went home, buy an item, come to Dragon Pit. Dragon has been slain by the enemy. Enemy has slain the dragon. You know, it's too late for you. So Shyvana is good, definitely in EU server. Lee Sin, S+, I do not agree in any shape or form. You know, Lee Sin is, as we discussed in the last video, is a ticking time bomb. This champion is strong early game, but this strength in early game, usually in EU server, it's player dependent, it's team dependent. If your team has some really decent players, which there are a lot of really good players in EU server, and that know how strong Lee Sin is, that want to invade with Lee Sin, that want to play to the jungle, the river fight, want to contest the river scuttle, want to contest the both river scuttle with Lee Sin, you might be really strong. You might be dominating the game right off the bat, right off the get-go. But most of the game when you play solo queue, and I believe tier list should apply to, you know, everything. And most players, just like you and me, we play solo queue. When you play solo queue, Lee Sin is a ticking time bomb. If you don't have the advantage early game, you're done. You're not gonna outskill Jinx. In fact, you probably try to run into marksman, especially enemy have a really good Lulu Jinx combo, or right now in the current meta, Xayah and Rakan. You walk in, you get knocked up, Xayah poo poo poo. Then you 3 auto attack, you're done. You know, you're dead on the ground. You have to dash away if you have it. If you don't have dash away, you're done. You're dead on the ground. So I dislike Lee Sin as S+. I think Lee Sin should be under Shyvana actually in EU server. For me, it's a really strong champ. It should be at least S tier in all regions, right? In Asia server, it's a really powerful, really popular champ among the challenger rank. Let's take a look at a pro guys list though. They list Shyvana, they list Evelynn is OP. I disagree with Shyvana. I think Shyvana should be A tier. You know, that's just my personal opinion. A tier to S-, somewhere around there, because it's region specific and it does work really well in EU server, especially in a lot of low elo when people don't invade. You pick Shyvana, there's really high chance you can win the game. Steal Dragon, for a Steal Baron, and just scale yourself, eventually 1 versus 9. Like, both tier lists here kind of agree that Shyvana's OP. I agree with the merit, but theoretically and actually in competitive scene, I disagree statistically. Now, Evelynn, I think is player dependent. If the player know how to play Evelynn really well, yes, you can see from Excoundrel list. It lists Evelynn as scary one trick. Somebody knows how to play Evelynn, it becomes really scary, right? Evelynn's early game is actually not that strong, but if your team helps you, if Evelynn's able to gank a lane, and that laner understand Evelynn needs someone to start off the team fight, and Evelynn goes in, charm somebody, connect the charm, it's literally a free gank at level 5, and Evelynn's able to snowball off that, she becomes the scariest champ in the game because there's no counter for Evelynn. You cannot counter invisibility. You cannot see her, right? The wards didn't do anything. The sweeper didn't do anything. You just can't see her, right? She can gank any lane, any position she wants to if she has the farm. With that being said, it is player dependent. It's team dependent. I do believe Evelynn in OP in S+ list is fine. You know, where she is. Monkey, Wukong should be in S tier. Both lists actually agree. It's just the Shyvana, right? I think Shyvana should move down. Basically, in the jungle tier list, I think a Pro Guys Wall Rift tier list is more accurate in, you know, depicting the current situation, the current meta. All right, guys, welcome back to the mid lane tier list comparison. Now, for Excoundrel, we have S+ as Orianna. 100% agree. I personally said this in the last video again. Orianna is just on another level. The utility, the early game poke, the late game scaling. Her survivability as a mage who doesn't have any mobility is insane. Like, especially if you build Seraph's Embrace, the shield is actually so annoying to go against. If you play Assassins, you know the pain. Which, like me, I play Assassins, and you know Orianna is kind of like easy to kill, squishy. You jump in through her entire kit, boom, this huge ass shield pop up. You're like, oh gosh, and she turns around and kill you. If you look at Pro Guys list, they have Ahri as OP. You know, I would disagree. But I definitely think Ahri should be S tier. Like, from Excoundrel's list, Ahri is in A, or at least A+. Ahri, we talked about in the last video also, is one of the best mages, if not the best mage, to go against any assassins because the charm auto aim, because of her mobility. There's so many assassins in the game now. Yasuo can kill any mage solo except for Ahri. Ahri is probably the only mage that this assassin have problem dealing with. Any assassin have problem dealing with Ahri. Because of charm, because of mobility, you can't solo kill Ahri when she has everything available, unless Ahri is just much worse than you, right? And Ahri early game burst damage is insane, so I do understand why they put Ahri as OP, but I do think that Orianna's a lot stronger. Orianna should be put as S+, should be put as OP. And let's talk about Corki. Corki from Excoundrel's list, you can see right now, is in S to S+, where in Pro Guy's list, Corki is somehow only an A tier champ. I 100% would disagree with that. Corki is probably one of the most annoying champ to go against in mid lane. He outpokes everybody, including Orianna. It's just that he doesn't have the qual control. All he has is damage, except when Corki has the package. When Corki has the package, you can actually completely do a terrestrial control, a separation, right? You know, separate part of the team from other part. If you know how to play Corki, this champ is insane in mid lane, and it should be put in that position, which Excoundrel's list, you can see that it's S to S+, which I 100% agree. Akali should not be put as S in mid lane. Akali, I think, is okay in mid lane, because simply put, Akali missed the poking elements a mid laner should have. That's why Orianna is so strong. You know, before any team fight begins, Orianna's presence alone will be really scary, because Orianna can just stay around her team, continue to throw the QWE, the 1-2-3 combo, to poke the enemy team, to kind of shred your HP. And this might not seem much in the early game, but once you get to the late game, once Orianna gets those 3 items, gets the, I would build Luden's Echo right now, I build Celestial Embrace, again, the Death Cap, Rabadon Death Cap. Once you finish those 3 items, you can literally QWE, that's 30 to 40% of a Squishy's HP, you know, and you can do that every 4 seconds, but Akali doesn't have it. So I personally do not agree Akali's S tier mid laner. I think Akali's a really good Baron laner, but mid lane, I do think Akali should be moved down to A tier instead because the lack of poke. If your team has a poke, what it allows your team to do is comeback potential if your team is behind because you can clear wave. What allows the team to do when you have the advantage is terrestrial control, right? Just completely zone the enemy away because you can poke them. In other words, you can end the team fight before the team fight even begin, you know? Because like if you do really that much poke, like Orianna in a super late game, 1 QWO, you can kill somebody. And then you have that every few seconds. You know, that is not no longer poke. That is basically, if you see Orianna, you gotta pay attention. Somebody to kill this beautiful, scary robot girl, right? So the backline can stay alive to do damage. Akali, full dive. If you fail the dive, you're done, right? Yasuo, player dependent, I agree. Yasuo, laning phase though, is really strong. There's almost no champion who is stronger in lane than Yasuo. Maybe a better Akali player. Again, I think Orianna should be moved up from the pro guys list, and I think that Akali should be moved down, and Corki should be moved up. And the Twisted Fate is a lot higher tier. It's also player dependent. If you know how to shove wave, how to create an early game advantage for your laners, for your jungler, Twisted Fate scaling is second to none in the game right now. Like the late game, 1 poke, QW, somebody's deleted. So yes, definitely Excoundrel's tier list, I think in the mid lane position is a lot more accurate in my personal perspective. Now, let's move on to the marksman, the ADC tier list. I would favor, once again, Excoundrel tier list, and here is why. I've said this in the last patch because Xayah only got a change in the 2.1a, not 2.1b, didn't get any change. Xayah should be S tier. In the 2.1a tier list that when we did a review on Pro Guys tier list, I've said why they didn't put Xayah as like OP, because Xayah is definitely OP right now, right? If you haven't played this champ, if you haven't tried to abuse this champ, you only got a limited window, right? Now try to do it right now. Try to get proficient on the champ right now before Riot nerf it. Xayah with a good Rakan is absolutely scary. They're the combo that we played against last time. I was on Lulu playing with Jinx. It's probably one of the most annoying combo to play against in lane, right? You can poke really well, but Rakan and Xayah literally almost one-shotted me. All he did was knock me up. The Xayah like start auto-attacking me, and he Rakan threw an ignite. I was dead. I have to throw a flash and then pop the plant so I stay alive. It was that scary. Level 1, guys. She outranges now Jinx when she throws this feather. Like, it's just insane what this champion is. Her poke is insane, and on top of it, the poke damage is insane, and her late game skilling is crazy, dude. Remember, Xayah's a late game ADC. She's not supposed to be an early game ADC. When Xayah first came out, I was saying that Xayah was really bad then, before the buff, before 2.1a, because Xayah was like a worse version of Vayne, you know? But they over buffed her now. So Xayah is definitely S+ tier, OP tier. And the both tier lists finally agreed. They put Xayah on OP. What I don't like about pro guys tier list in this category is Jinx and Kai'Sa. I think Jinx and Kai'Sa should be on a lower tier compared to Xayah, thanks to how strong Xayah is right now. And then once again, Corki should be moved up to A tier as a marksman, right? You can see that on Excoundrel's list, Corki is A to S tier, which I 100% agree. I think Corki is really, really strong in lane, especially right now if you match with Leona. Because Leona's early game laning phase is really powerful thanks to the passive, right? Every time she applies skill, she applies a little passive on the person. If your ally procs it, it does insane amount of damage. It works really well with any ADC who does damage early game. And those ADC includes Corki, includes Jhin, includes Draven. All those ADCs can work really well with Leona. And Corki, we know how much damage he does, and we know how scary the champion is, now scaled into late game as well. So overall, I think Corki should be moved up in the pro guys tier list. That's why I personally preferred Excoundrel's list for the ADC. Last but not least, we're in the support category. Before we get started on comparing those two lists, I do want to say ahead of time, in my humble but largely correct opinion, I do not think right now there is one support that is completely overpowering the other. There's support that's bad. I can say the lower tier, you can compare the lower tier supports, but in a lot of supports in the game right now are really combo dependent, team dependent. It's based on what team you have. It's based on what enemy champion they have. It's all relative. You cannot say one champion is absolutely OP over the other, right? Like, I'll give an example. Blitz is a troll support. But if enemy support champion is something like Soraka, is something like even Lulu now, right? Like a mage support, and you're a really proficient Blitz, you're actually gonna overpower them. Remember, Blitz is still a semi-tank support, you know? He's still a melee support. He can go walk up to people, knock people up, silence the entire area, and hook somebody. He still have chance CCs, where Lulu cannot do that. Lulu cannot walk up to a bunch of enemy and do that, right? That's just suicide. The last thing you want to do is apply ultimate on yourself. You want to apply ultimate on your team. So it's all relative based on what you have, what enemy has. And most importantly, support is all combos. I also talk about how Alistar, you can see from both lists, they agree that Alistar is S+ tier. I personally agree with that. I think Alistar is really powerful. I've been seeing this for a while. But Alistar still need to be matched with really, really strong, like dive-in ADCs, dive-in team comps, like Yasuo, for example. People can wombo combo with him, right? Jhin, Draven. You need to have damage. Because Alistar has no damage. Alistar has no poke either. When he goes in, he's in. There's no coming out. You know, especially pre-level 5, when he doesn't have the tankiness. Alistar without ultimate is a squishy tank. It's a squishy frontline. You goes in with your QW with a skill 1-2 combo. If your ADC is not trading proficiently, it's not doing damage with your follow-up, you usually end up with like 10%, 20% HP left. You try to run away. Trying to proc your E with their ultimate is the scariest thing on Alistar. You know, if you don't have ultimate, you go jump on a group of people with QW and then you start using your skill 3, pong, 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 you're dead. That's literally how it works. Alistar is not tanky without the ult. You know, he needs a strong team who follow up to do wombo combo with him. That's why this champion is good. He's good engaged and he's good setting up wombo combos. But if your ADC is like Israel, if you pick like a Teemo mid lane, I don't know, just right on top of my head, something troll, right? That doesn't do that much damage. What is Alistar gonna do? He jump in QW, dead. Like literally pop the flash, pop the heal just to save himself and watch your ADC do no damage, right? Let's say go to Dragonfly. You might think, oh, if I have an Alistar, I can engage. But you think about it. Your ADC do no damage. If your team does no damage, if you have like a Nasus Baron lane, right? Like who is not gonna come to Dragon Pit. What's the point of having an Alistar? Who are you engaging for? You're engaging for nobody. You're engaging for no damage. You can go and knock up 4 people, and then Israel throw an ult, throw a QWE, throw everything on it. That person is still alive, and they turn around to kill everybody. That's not a good combo. My point is, Alistair is situational. He's good most of the time, especially in EU where people love to team fights, but it's not good all the time. You know, a lot of the time I just prefer Janna. For example, if I have a champion like Jinx, if I have a champion like Israel, I prefer Janna or Lulu, to be honest, as a support, you know, because those champions not going to do much damage early game. But they're really good at poking, and they're really good at just continue to throw out skills, right? So it's much better for Vayne doesn't really poke that much, but Vayne scales. So if you just pick a champ that annoys the hell out of an enemy champ, like Janna, right? Try to always keep your ADC alive, always keep the entire team alive, where when they dive you can interrupt and disrupt that engage. It can be really strong. And in fact, Janna is listed one of the highest tier support in the game right now by Excoundrel's list. Both lists, I wouldn't compare them good or bad. I would say the thing I agree is that Leona is really strong right now. Alice are really strong right now. Pantheon, I think is really good support. People should explore that option because Pantheon alone do a lot of damage. You know, that's different. Pantheon actually works with most of the ADCs because him alone does insane amount of damage. Rakan is definitely underlooked. Rakan is a really powerful support. In Pro Guide's list, you can see Rakan list is tier B. I think that's totally wrong. Rakan should be moved up to look at the Excoundrel list, right? To S tier. Rakan is like Alistair, but more mobile. You know, he can go in and actually leave. And the thing about Rakan is he does chain qual control, right? He can use the ultimate first and then go in. You cannot run away. If Rakan uses ultimate and then dash onto you, you're not gonna run away from the knockup. You're gonna be knocked up guaranteed, and you're gonna be charmed. It's a 2-second guaranteed qual control in a large area. Depends on how many people are kind of, you know, stay together. Definitely a lot higher tier than B tier though, as Pro Guide's tier list entails. So Soraka, I do not believe is A tier. Soraka, I believe is a B tier at best. So that from Excoundrel's list, it's a troll pick, similar to Blitz, but worse. Any person can build anti-heal. Katarina, ultimate anti-heal, right? There are a lot of mechanics and anti-heals. Most importantly, Soraka offer no qual control, nothing. You know, no lane pressure. All he does is heal. Yes, you can poke, but that's also a skill shot. And a good team would not get hit by the skill shot all the time, you know? In fact, Soraka try to get in range to throw the Q, is she usually get out-traded. Imagine the Soraka try to get in range to throw a Q because you're like enemy ADC try to last hit, right? I mean, that's a good time for Soraka to throw a Q in there. If you think like that, you're basically being arrogant. You're really thinking that the other side support is not gonna do anything when he saw a Soraka walking up to you, right? If I just have a Lux, if I see a Soraka coming up, try to throw a Q, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna unleash on a Soraka. It's a free kill, bro. I literally, like, root, auto attack, slow, auto attack, my ADC do something, Soraka is dead. Because Soraka cannot heal herself. She can only heal her ally. It's free kills, man. So I don't think Soraka should be in A-list. I think tier B, you know, a low elo champ at best. Even Sona is better, in my opinion. Sona offers a lot of damage in lane, a lot of poke in lane, and a lot of mobility, you know, for her team. So just, I think Nami is better, which both tier lists agrees. So overall, for support tier list, I wouldn't say which one is better. Or which one is more accurate, in my personal opinion. I have completely different views when we talk about support tier lists. I believe there are certain champions are just troll in support role. For example, if you pick like Teemo, if you pick Soraka, if you pick Blitz, especially in higher elo, the higher elo you goes, the troller it becomes when you pick those champions. The enemies know how to abuse you, right? Imagine picking Ziggs as support. Like, how troll is that? Like, are you gonna throw skills on the minion waves? Then how is your ADC gonna farm? Are you gonna throw skills on the enemy team? You know, then if you do that, you do no damage because you have no items, right? You have no money. So that's what we call a troll support. You know, I think there are a lot of champions who are troll, but most of the support heroes are really support champions, are really player dependent, team dependent, based on what your team needs. So with that, guys, what do you guys think? Leave a comment down below, like, subscribe, and turn that bell on, and I will see you guys next time. AssassinDave signing off. Bye now.
Just for the thrill of it, nothing counterfeit with you.